What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bios3 Raw TV. Today, this is follow-up. This is a part 2 of a video that I made about heart disease in the world, in America, etc. And I had a lot of people ask me for the link. They're like, Jerry, where's the link? I told you it's on my Facebook. Stop being so fucking lazy and just go to my Facebook and look for it. It boggles my mind. I said right in the video that it's on my Facebook. How do you not know where to find it? And that just goes to show, because people say stuff all the time on my, my comment section, and I'm like, did you listen to the fucking video? Did you only listen to part of it? Like, there's pieces missing because you're talking about, I think you listen to like 2 minutes of an 8-minute video, and then all of a sudden you start commenting on it, and I'm like, you have no idea what the fuck, this doesn't make any sense. You obviously didn't listen to it. So, please, pay attention to the video, know what I'm talking about, before you start asking me questions and hammering me, because first of all, I'm not going to answer them back, because I know you didn't fucking listen to the whole thing, or you didn't pay attention. It's obvious. So this whole thing was, it's written by a heart surgeon, okay? This guy saw 5,000 cases in his career of inflammation heart disease. 5,000. Now, any study out there, I'm like 99% sure when they're doing studies on heart disease and stuff, it's not 5,000 people. It's maybe a couple hundred, 100 here, 100 there, maybe over the course of, whatever there's 5,000 people. But that, seeing something consistent in 5,000 people, I would say, would absolutely prove that there's something going on. If it was 100 people, I'd say, well, there's, genetic, distribution, predispositions, etc., that may, account for this. But 5,000 patients, all of them have the same thing wrong with them? Okay. So now, basically, what I said, this, this surgeon was talking about how inflammation is what causes heart disease, not fats. And I'm going to read this off so that I get this right, because people get very upset and well, that's not the way it is, Jerry. I've read a book and I know. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. All right, so this guy's wrong, even though he did 5,000 heart surgeries on people. He talks about the issue being sugar and soybean oil. Those are the two things that cause the inflammation. Soybean oil is high in omega-6 oils. Potato chips, processed foods. He talks about sweet rolls, which are full of sugar and the soybean oil. Two things that absolutely cause inflammation. So what he's saying basically is the omega-6, the cell membrane produces chemicals called cytokines that directly cause inflammation. That happens by consuming excessive omega-6. Now people go, oh, omega fatty acids. Well, they have to be in balance. Omega-6, 9, 3, they have to be in balance. Too much of that specific omega will actually fuck you up. I mean, this is not new stuff. He says that the mainstream diet is full of all these things. If you look at them, any packages, you're going to find these, sugar or soybean oil or different oils like that. He said, the excessive weight that you carry from eating these foods overloads the fat cells to pour large quantities of pro-inflammatory chemicals that add to the injury caused by having a high blood sugar. The process that began with a sweet roll turns into a vicious cycle over that creates heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, finally Alzheimer's, and the inflammatory process continues unabated. Now, he's not saying one sweet roll, but who the fuck is eating one sweet roll? Let's face facts. Nobody's eating, I had someone mention this, they're like, oh, potatoes, and rice, they all get converted into glucose. They shouldn't avoid carbohydrates in general. We're not talking about carbohydrates. We're talking about table sugar. This guy, if I can find this, where he goes on to talk about how how it works, like how sugar itself. Okay, here it is. So he says, what are the biggest culprits of chronic inflammation? Quite simply, they are overload of simple, highly processed carbohydrates, sugar, flour, and all the products made from them, and the excessive consumption of omega-6 vegetable oils like soybean, corn, sunflower that are found in many processed foods. Now, this is the interesting part. Take a moment to visualize rubbing a stiff brush repeatedly over soft skin until it becomes red and nearly bleeding. You kept this up several times a day after day for 5 years. You could tolerate this painful brushing, but you'd have a bleeding. Swollen, infected area that became worse with each repeated injury. This is a good way to visualize the inflammatory process that could be going on in your body right now. Basically, he talks about a diseased artery looks as if someone took a brush and scrubbed repeatedly against the wall. Several times a day, every day, the foods we eat create small injuries compounding into more injuries, causing the body to respond continuously and appropriately with inflammation. Now, have you ever taken sugar and put it in your fingers and moved it around. It's very granular. It's very rough. Has a texture to it. Now, if you put it in water, it seems to dissolve. However, on a molecular level, that still has that consistency. Just because it's in liquid and you can't feel it to the touch doesn't mean that sugar doesn't have that granular consistency to it. So as that's flowing through your blood, being broken down in your arteries, yeah, it's rubbing against the arteries, making that shit all fucked up. Now take fat, for instance. Take a piece of fat, whether it's cold, whether it's heated up, whether you fucking melt it down, it's squishy. It doesn't have that same effect. So this is why it's easier for the fat to actually go through the arteries than it is for the sugar. The sugar irritates the arteries. Fat does not. Fat is actually made to go through those arteries. And yes, your arteries are made to pull carbohydrates and etc. But it's not made for all this shit that's man-made that is fucking it up. And this guy blatantly says, excuse me, straight out, that you don't even know what's happening. And he says, imagine spilling syrup on your keyboard and you have a visual of what occurs inside the cell. When we consume simple carbohydrates such as sugar, blood sugar rises rapidly. In response, your pancreas secretes insulin, whose primary purpose is to drive sugar into each cell where it is stored for energy. If the cell is full and does not need glucose, it is rejected to avoid the extra sugar gumming up the works. When your full cells reject the extra glucose, blood sugar rises, producing more insulin, and then converts glucose into stored fat. What does all this have to do with the inflammation? Blood sugar is controlled in a very narrow range. Extra sugar molecules that attach to a variety of proteins that in turn injure blood vessel walls. This is repeated injury to the blood vessel wall that sets off the inflammation. When you spike your blood sugar level several times a day, every day, it's exactly like taking sandpaper to the inside of your delicate blood vessels. Now, 25 years and 5,000 surgical patients that he's seen that have all had the same thing, all through the same diet, low fat, high carbohydrate, high processed, the 100-calorie snack packs and shit. Oh, 100 calories, full of sugar. Why are people getting fatter? Why are people getting more unhealthy? Why are people getting all fucked up? If it was cutting the fat out, they would just make all these foods with no fat in it, and you'd be able to eat 100-calorie snack packs all day long. As long as you stayed under your calories, you wouldn't have any issues. That's not what's happening. Now, not just the obesity, but the diabetic problem that soared through the fucking roofs, they didn't have that 20 years ago. There was no diabetic type 2 diabetes problem at all. How many people were on insulin? I mean, I knew very few people in my family or friends or anywhere around the friggin' country that I knew that had any issues with diabetes. Like maybe 2 that were taking insulin shots. Nowadays, everybody's on glucophage, metformin, glipizide. They're on all kinds of shit because they're either pre-diabetic or type 2 adult onset diabetes. Adult onset. Why does it wait till you're an adult? What happens when you suddenly become an adult that your body becomes diabetic? You've been fucking it up for a long time with sugars. That's how it works. So, we can argue about this all day and all long. You can say it's one study. I'd say it's 25 years over 5,000 patients. That's not just a study, okay? That's two and a half decades of seeing the same thing over and over again. And I bet you that would hold more weight than some of these 10-week studies that we've seen or 12-week studies that we've seen with 100 or less people that we base all kinds of scientific facts on. This guy's got one up on them by far. BioStraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. www.biostraining.com is the blog, and where the heart disease, hope we stop at bicep, and we're out.